Welcome into the PFF State of the Franchise. It is your Detroit Lions edition. Sam, Lions fans have not been too happy with us in recent years. Our projections are always a little bit lower on them than they've actually, turned out during the season. But I think what that says is when the projections are a little bit lower, they've overachieved as a team. I don't think we're looking at one of the better rosters around the NFL right now, but they do have pieces in some key places that, they've got a good foundation and something to build upon.
And it hasn't been a tremendously busy offseason so far for the Lions. They've made a few interesting moves. They've retained a couple of key pieces. In particular, they kept Ziggy Ansah in the building, which I think is huge. This was a bad year to be looking for pass rush help. So if you've got a guy hitting the open market, you better make sure you keep him in-house because it's going to be hard to replace him.
Yeah, and they still need a complement there. We've seen Anthony Zettel on the other side, show at least flashes at times last year, but it's still going to be a key spot for them maybe to attack when it comes draft time. What about on the offensive side of this roster? I like the playmakers. You have Matthew Stafford at quarterback. Still some room to improve on the offensive line. It seems like that's going to be a place that they're looking at number 20 in the draft.
Yeah, it should be. And I think offense generally is a pretty good spot for this Detroit Lions. It's the strength of the roster. They're much better on that side of the ball than they are on defense. I think they're in an interesting spot. They're definitely going to be in a good situation to potentially target offensive linemen in the draft early. But I think this is a reasonably strong offensive line draft overall, all the way down the draft. I think they can wait, get guys in the middle rounds, and target defense with those first picks. That's where I would go.
All right, so on the defensive side of the ball, we've got a few question marks still in the secondary. They get teased Tabor last year after his disastrous combine/pro day, but still jury's out on him as far as a player. You have Darius Slay back there. Is corner another place that they attack and add more depth? Or is it all of their resources have to be in that front seven where last year they go first round, Jared Davis at linebacker, but still room to improve there?
No, I think they can definitely target the secondary. The cornerback is still a big need. Darius Slay has been pretty good, better than pretty good. He's been a very good corner for them. May never get better than very good, may not take that step to become an elite shutdown corner, but he's a very good player to have as one starting position. But this is the NFL in 2018. You can never have too many corners. They signed a couple of guys. They signed Deshaun Shedd. They brought back Nevin Lawson. But if you look at the PFF grades, the numbers, I'm looking through premium stats right now, and if you look at what Nevin Lawson has done the past 2 years, passer rating allowed of 111.2 in 2016 and 104 in 2017. This is a guy that has allowed some serious production when he's been targeted. I think they can afford to target someone completely different in the draft, try and upgrade that position. And a guy like Teez Tabor, he might be the guy to improve in year two, but he played just 176 snaps in year one. If you want to find all the nuggets of information, premium stats, all part of PFF Elite.
I love it. Does break it down every which way. And if they are looking for a corner, I do think the place to go, second round, is where we have, as I'm looking at our draft board, guys like Isaiah Oliver out of Colorado, Carlton Davis out of Auburn, Parry Nickerson, your boy, out of Tulane. I think there's some value there in that second or third round. Going back to that offensive line, if they do go that way in the first round, do you want to just go nuts on your boy Frank Ragnow and how that fit maybe at center would be the perfect one for Detroit?
Well, look, Frank Ragnow is one of PFF's guys in this draft. Everybody's talking about Quentin Nelson as the one surefire great pick on the offensive line in this draft. The PFF grades say Frank Ragnow is every bit as good at center. This is a guy that basically didn't allow pressures last year. One hurry playing center, two hurries playing guard last season, moonlighted a little bit against Alabama, playing guard when they needed to. He has 2 seasons of phenomenal grading, the 2 highest graded seasons we've seen from any center. This is a guy that should be seen as an absolute surefire first-round pick, a lock to be one of the best players taken in this draft, but isn't seen in that kind of light. The Lions could take him in the first round, and it would still look like a steal if he's as good as the grades say he is.
Yeah, and we have Graham Glasgow slotted in right now as the starting center for Detroit. 26 pressures last year. And Matthew Stafford, when pressured, passer rating drops about 35, 40 points. That's just last year. Again, I'm pulling that from premium stats on PFF Elite as well. So we got some holes on the offensive line. I like the playmakers. Let's discuss the running game in Detroit. They've had a number of veteran running backs coming in and out this offseason. Seems like this is definitely going to be a place that they address as well. And for the last few years, Lions fans have been saying, look, I like the receivers. I like what Stafford can do, but you have to take some pressure off of those guys with a more efficient running game.
We might just be seeing a philosophical decision with this Lions team, though. They don't want to run the ball. They have a quarterback that's paid among the very best players in the entire league. They want to put the ball in his hands to justify that salary as much as anything else. They don't want to hand it off to a running back in key situations. So for years we've been saying they've got some talented players there. They've got guys that are role players, third down backs. Where is the bell cow to take the pressure off that offense? Where's the guy that will pound it between the tackles and make those big plays when it happens? And, we've been mocking them running backs earlier in this process. Rashad Penny out of San Diego State in the first round. Now we might see it, though. They brought in LeGarrette Blount, who, if nothing else, is a sledgehammer at running back. He is going to take it up the middle and see what is there. So at least this season, I think we're going to see if this is a philosophical decision. Are they going to make use of a guy like Blount, or is he just going to be a guy that is there for very small sample size situations, goal line kind of plays, and isn't going to see a huge amount of workload? They're still going to default to Theo Riddick, to Amir Abdullah out of the backfield, primarily as receivers.
And even though I hate the running game in general, though, if you do add a Ragnow up front, you got TJ Lang staying healthy, you have Taylor Decker staying healthy, who's a much better run blocker than he is a pass blocker at left tackle heading into his third year. Maybe you can concoct a little bit of a running game, take some pressure off Stafford, and that will help maximize his value instead of, him just, putting all the pressure on him and Marvin Jones and Golden Tate and an emerging Kenny Golladay.
But you've got to be willing to do it from a play calling standpoint as well. This team passes the ball as much, if not more, than any other team in the NFL. They've been top two over the past 2 seasons at that. We're going to see if they're prepared to dial it back a notch in the other direction and actually run the ball more as a conscious choice.
Going back to the defensive side again, if in the first round it's an edge defender or a big interior defensive lineman and just adding to that front seven, we've talked about Harold Landry for a lot of different teams because we're high on him as a top 10 guy, but he could fall to that 20 range. Could they pounce on a Harold Landry? Could we look at a Marcus Davenport out of UTSA, who's a little bit more of a developmental guy, a lot like Ziggy Ansah coming out of college? Yeah. I think that's a place where if they let the board fall to them, they could find some edge value.
Yeah, it's not a great class, though, for edge defenders or for interior guys. It's not a good draft for that. The other interesting name, I think, that might be in the hunt would be Vita Vea. He's drawn comps in the past to Haloti Ngata, who they had in last year, barely played, like 145 snaps for them. Vita Vea could come in and be that player. The other guy that could be around when the Lions pick, even though we don't think he should be anywhere near there, Maurice Hurst.
Right.
We think Maurice Hurst is a top 5 caliber player.
You sprint to the podium to go get Maurice Hurst if you're at 20.
Absolutely. The NFL doesn't seem to be as high on him, or at least the media, the draft community doesn't seem to be as high on him. If he winds up being available at number 20, the Lions should sprint and get that card in.
Yeah, so this looks like a draft that's going to be all about the trenches. Let's add to that offensive line. Let's find those defensive playmakers. I think the Lions are in a good spot to do that. Let the draft fall to you and grab the best player at either position. That is your Detroit Lions State of the Franchise, and it's been powered by PFF Elite.